Welcome to Figuring Out Families by Magellan Media, where we help make families the best they can be. We're pleased to be joined by marriage counsellor and family expert Derek Boylen for what we are calling the Focus Sessions, aimed at helping families with relationship issues. Together with Derek, over a number of these sessions, we will explore the most pressing issues facing families today. We hope you enjoy and find this series valuable. Hello again, Derek. Today we're talking about goal setting in relationships. Having goals is important in all aspects of life, whether it be at work, in the home, or in relationships. Derek, why is setting goals and parameters around things in life such a good idea?
Yeah, goals are very important, David. I guess our lives, we want in our lives to have a sense of purpose, a sense of direction, a sense of meaning, that we're working towards something. And goals are the things that do that. They give our lives a sense of meaning and a sense of direction and a purposefulness that I think for all of us, we feel more happy and more satisfied when we feel that our lives are serving some higher purpose.
Now, when two people first meet and there's an attraction, the hormones are jumping and there's much excitement, I think we all remember those days. Is it fair to say goal setting early on in a relationship is not as important for couples as they're still getting to know each other, or should they really start setting goals early on?
Look, I don't think it's probably as essential, or certainly couples don't feel it's as essential early in the relationship. And in a way, they actually do have a goal. In a sense, they already have a goal, and that is to discover the potential of the relationship. That's the goal in the early stages. It's getting to know one another. It's discovering if they have similar expectations and values and goals for the future going forward. And I guess it's exploring whether they'd like to build a life together that's going into the future. So in a way, they do have a goal, and it is trying to work out, well, does this relationship have a chance and have potential?
Yeah, and you don't know. I mean, if you go out on a first date or a second date or even a third date, and with some couples, they can go on for a couple of years and still not really know whether they're suited or whether they want to end up together for all time.
Yeah, it can take a while, and we really need to try and see that person in different life circumstances. We need time to be able to see them in the way that they relate to our friends and to our families, how they relate to their own families, and the sorts of things, the ways that they react in difficult situations or when they're under stress, and trying to work out, well, is this the sort of person that I could build a future with? And so it does take a fair while, especially in the early stage of a relationship. Psychologists refer to it as limerence, and it usually lasts for about 6 months to up to 2 years. But it's that sort of early stage where we're in love, and this person, we can't think of anything besides talking to this person and being with this person, and certainly we want to not make any major serious life decisions while we're still in limerence. Allow that to sort of settle down a little bit and discover if we have, the other real things that are going to be important for sustaining the relationship.
Yes, that feeling of being in love, and it's sort of like being hit by a freight train, really, and you don't want to be with anyone else, do you? You just want to spend 24 hours with them.
That's right. We can imagine they seem like a princess or a god to us. Like they could never do anything wrong, and it does take a little while for them to come off that pedestal, and for us to realize that actually they are a normal mortal human being, and they make mistakes and they have failings. And am I okay with those things? Could I still accept and forgive those things?
Yes, that blind love does wear off, which leads me to my next question. The novelty factor will eventually go. Is that when couples, Derek, should be clearer about certain things and set boundaries then?
Absolutely. It's a really important stage at that point. The brain loves novelty. And what is novel and exciting today is known and boring tomorrow. And so it's absolutely at this time, and as the novelty starts to wear off, that hopefully, naturally, most couples should start to be having more conversations about their hopes and about their dreams and their expectations, and quite concrete conversations about those things, to see, well, are our goals for our future aligned with one another? Are we sort of headed in the same direction? They should be talking to one another about what they hope will be important factors in their lives in the future, and also when they hope that those things will be important, whether it's career plans or traveling plans, parenting, having children, when and how far apart, and where they'd like to live. Those sorts of things are conversations that they certainly should be having, and to sort of, I guess, discern whether they're on the same page and whether they there is the possibility of us creating shared goals that are going to sustain our relationship.
Sure, and I imagine that is one of the reasons why some relationships don't get off the ground, because the couple early on realise they're not dancing to the same drum beat, if I can put it that way, and they do have different goals.
It sure is, and it's often a difficult discernment for couples, especially if they've decided to cohabit early in the relationship. When the romance is sort of worn off, and if the person has decided that they really don't share similar goals or a similar future, it's much harder to call off that relationship. I guess the consequences that and the cost of that relationship keep us sometimes in a relationship that otherwise we wouldn't really see a future with. And so establishing some quite clear expectations, earlier before furthering the relationship is a much wiser course of action.
No, that's exactly right. What is it about setting goals that is most important for a relationship? Because probably a lot of people wouldn't think of it. They meet someone, they eventually fall in love, but the idea of setting goals and being on the same page, it doesn't come to mind necessarily.
Yeah, that's right. I think, and especially at the early stage of the relationship, they kind of have this idea. The goal is simply to build a life together. And that's exciting at the beginning because this person is new and exciting. And they don't often sort of, I guess, see the importance of setting goals further into the relationship, more concrete goals, aside from just having a relationship. But goals are important for relationships, and not just in the early stages. And one of the great things about goals is it can bring a lot of excitement back into a relationship. It gives us a clearer vision of our future. It helps to get us working as a team towards something, moving towards something that has shared meaning and shared significance for us. So it's actually really important for relationships because it does bring back a sense of, direction and purposefulness and excitement for the relationship.
Yeah, and I guess you don't necessarily always have to have the same goals, do you? I mean, you can still have that love and have shared values, but your goals might be slightly different at times.
I think so. And I think it's actually healthy. It's important for us to have goals as a couple. And it's also important for us to have individual goals. I guess it's our individual goals and hopes and dreams for our life that give us individually a sense of purpose and meaning. And I guess a healthy relationship is only as strong as the weakest person in that relationship. I guess it's that idea that a chain is only as strong as the weakest link. So we also want to have our own individual goals that bring us meaning and purpose, that help us to feel confident about the future and that we're living a life that is meaningful, because that's going to help us to be more of the person that we want to be in our relationship.
Yes, and you mentioned purpose and direction. I mean, I imagine that's vitally important, really, if a relationship's going to have a long, sustained future.
Yeah, it's very, very important because it does give us purpose and direction. And that what that does is it helps to shape, so many of the different aspects of our life in meaningful ways. It helps us to work out how to prioritize our finances, whether that's moving us towards our goals, our hopes and dreams, or not. It helps us to prioritize our time and our resources. It helps, either we're doing things with our time that get us closer to the hopes and dreams that we have for our relationship and our lives, or not. And it also motivates us. It gives us a little bit more of a spring in our step, when we wake up in the morning, because there's something to look forward to that we're sort of moving towards, as opposed to sort of waking up and not having any real sense of clear purpose or direction. So, I guess that purpose and direction does a lot in terms of shaping our lives in meaningful ways.
Fair enough. We might pause there for a moment, Derek, but we'll be back shortly.
If you believe family matters most, you'll want your family to thrive. The Magellan is the magazine I go to for advice on marriage, parenting, and keeping my family close. I trust Magellan because it's been devoted to families for 72 years and is Australia's longest-running Christian family magazine. Magellan Magazine, because family matters most. For your digital or print subscription and much more, go to magellan.media. That's Magellan with a J.
We're back with Derek after that short ad break. So, Derek, what is it about setting goals which is crucial for a strong and successful relationship?
Yeah, look, I think goals are, I guess what's sort of one of the things I think that's crucial is that goals become a way that we can measure progress in our relationships as well. The achievement of goals becomes a way that we can sort of look back and we can sort of say and remember, we did this and we achieved this. we can sort of see progress. It's often hard sometimes, after 10 years to look back and kind of, we got into the grind of daily life to look back and sort of say, what did we actually do? What do we actually achieve with our time? And so setting goals also gives us a sense of, achievement. I think of Karen and I, and we've, achieved some huge goals over the years. There was we went to the World Youth Day in 2008 in Sydney. We've driven around Australia twice. We attended the World Meeting of Families in Milan and building our home. And they were huge goals. They took a lot of planning for us and a lot of saving, putting money aside. And none of it really would have been possible without us sort of having a clear goal and then prioritizing and working out how to achieve that. So, goals really are crucial for strong relationships. They give us a sense of direction and purpose, but also they help us to have a sense of success, a sense of progress as well.
I'm very impressed. You drove around Australia twice. Was that before you had your 8 children?
No. So the first time we did it, we had 5. And Zechariah was our youngest. He was about 3 months old, and by some miracle, he spent a lot of time sleeping in a car. He was perfectly happy to do that. And then the second time, we travelled around Australia. Karen was 8 months pregnant with number 7, so little Lucas, and so it was. And at that particular time, we went all the way up to the top end, up as far as Cairns, and then across through the top of Queensland and back down through Uluru. It was a huge journey, but it was an amazing experience. Camped all the way and saw some incredible things. Had some amazing experiences, and it's complex to plan something like that. It takes time. You have to have a real clear goal in mind and a hope and a dream. But it really did catalyze us as a family. It brought us together. With one sort of mind and brought in a sense of excitement as we were sitting getting closer and closer.
You must have had a very big van.
We did. We had to upgrade to a high-ace commuter, which was far better for traveling because there was a lot more space to shift kids who weren't getting along with one another around.
Yeah, well, that would certainly test any family, I think, and being in the car or the van many hours each day, I imagine. But that's a good way to set goals and become a tighter family, I imagine.
Yeah, certainly, I think of an experience like that when we travelled across Australia. The first 2 days were pretty tough, as everyone got used to what it's like to be in a car for 7 hours with one another. But after that, we learned how to love one another. We learned how to get along and how to respond in the right ways. And we realised, we have to connect and reach out to one another. Sometimes, we have to sort of push through a little bit of discomfort in order to discover something new for our relationships and our families.
Fair enough. Anyway, you deserve 10 out of 10, you and Karen, for doing that, and not once but twice, so well done. Now, Derek, is there one particular way couples can set their goals, or there are a multitude of ways couples can go about it?
Look, there are many different ways to go about setting goals, but I'll share with you the way that Karen and I set goals, and we've used this many times, and we've found that it really helps as well. And I guess the great time to set goals for couple relationships and families is when we find ourselves reaching a point where we just seem to sort of have lost a sense of direction. For Karen and I, it's probably about every couple of years that we sort of sit down and it sort of seems, okay, we've achieved a few things that were hopes and dreams, and we're sort of in this sort of little bit of a lull and kind of trying to work out what now, what's next. And so the way we do it is we sit down with a piece of paper, an A4 sheet of paper, and we just sit down and we just try to write down all the goals that we have for our lives, and personal goals, individual goals, and couple relationship goals, and family goals, and everything from things that we think probably need to be done in the next month to things that sit on the possibly maybe one day never list, but be really cool if it did happen. Everything that we can think of goes onto that list. And as the kids have got a little bit older, we've invited them to be a part of that as well, to sort of put some of their hopes and dreams on there too, because as a family, we want to be able to respond and support one another in achieving things that are meaningful and fulfilling and that are hopes and dreams. The first time we sit down and do that, usually we come up with a list of about 10 to 20 things on that list. But then what we do is we stick it up on the kitchen fridge and we just leave it there for a whole week. Because there are other things over the course of the week that you don't immediately think of that suddenly, come to mind when you're in the shower the next morning or you're stopped at the traffic lights on the way to work. You suddenly think, actually, I didn't kind of want to learn a new language. And it would be really cool if we traveled to Antarctica. And it would also be awesome to be able to learn a new musical instrument. And we sort of come up with a whole bunch of other things that we think of over that period of time. And so we just keep adding them to the list on the fridge. Then we come back and sit down a week later. And that's kind of exciting, actually, because over the course of the week, every time you get milk out of the fridge, you see all those things listed there, and it sort of, they percolate, they sort of sit in your mind for a while, and you sort of, you can imagine how you might do it or when you think you might do it, those sorts of things. And then a week later, we sit down and we go over our list. And what we do is we sort of mark out which ones might be short-term goals, medium-term goals, long-term goals, and kind of maybe possibly one day never goals. But, we'll just keep them on the list because you never know, things might be possible in the future. When we do that, it becomes immediately clear which things we're sort of really excited about and are actually doable. We kind of think, you know what, actually, we could probably do this in the next month or two. We should actually work on that. And so that becomes a really clear priority, something that we're working to, that we're immediately excited about, and that brings us together.
Sure.
And there's almost always one or two things on that list that are sort of much longer term goals, but that we suddenly realize we could actually achieve this in the next couple of years. If we really put this money aside, or, there's this opportunity here coming up, we could actually do this. And this would be pretty exciting to do for us as a family or us as a couple. And suddenly it now becomes something that's actually real and tangible that we're working towards. So I always encourage couples to do it that way. Don't try and do it all in one sitting. Do it sort of over the course of a week, so that by the time you do sort of lock in some concrete goals, they're things that you really had a chance to think about, that are really possible, that are doable, and that are the things that you're really excited about, that you really are going to be passionate about pursuing. It's hard to do that just in one sitting.
Sure. And that's a good point. When we started talking about this earlier on, I didn't really think of the children so much, but especially when your kids get a bit older, it's a very good idea to have them as a family part of the goal-setting procedure, if you like.
Yeah, and sometimes they come up with things that I never even considered, weren't at all on my list, but when they sort of mention it, I think, actually, that'd be really cool. I'd love to do that with them, not just for it to be something that they hope for one day is a possible part of their future, but that actually as a family, we kind of go, yeah, we really want to support that. We want to get behind that, and we want to be a part of that journey as well and to help you with it.
Yeah, and they can surprise you at times with some of the strategies or ideas they have, even the younger ones, as you would know.
And often, there are new emerging things that they're aware of that we hadn't really sort of thought of that are possibilities. An example would be there's an indoor skydiving place that's been built here in Perth, and two of our oldest kids were like, we'd really like to go and try that out and have a go. And I'm thinking, I'd like to have a go at that. That sounds pretty exciting. Yeah. Another example would be in terms of a very short-term goal was a few years ago when the sequel to the Incredibles movie came out, and our eldest son said to me, Dad, I'd really like for us to go and see that as a family, which is not something that our 17-year-old often at that stage asked for, And I thought, you know what? If he's asking for it, let's do it. We want to do it as a family, and it was a lovely experience. But I think if we never sort of were open to their ideas and their hopes and dreams as well, it probably would have been a missed opportunity, for us as a family to do something that was meaningful for the members of the family.
Yeah, no, that's great. And when your teenagers do want to do things as a family, that it makes it even more special, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's right. And it's them also stepping up and taking more responsibility in the family, not just for the chores and those sorts of things, but also bringing the good things to the relationship, to the family relationships. Adults can bring petrol and money and resources and food and those sorts of things, but everyone's actually called to contribute meaningfully in some way. And one of the ways you do that is by contributing your hopes and your dreams for the future and your positive experiences.
Absolutely. That's what family is all about, as we've discussed in other episodes. Derek, would it be a good thing for couples to revisit their goals from time to time? I think we have spoken in a previous episode about looking at this sort of thing, but it's probably not something that is front of mind for a lot of couples.
Yeah, priorities are constantly changing, and so it is really important to revisit their goals. I kind of think sometimes when couples come into a relationship, they do have one or two goals. It might be career goals or financial investment type goals. But our lives are constantly changing. Our perspectives, our values, what's important to us, what brings us meaning, constantly change. And so do our resources. Our capacity to be able to do things is constantly changing. And so sometimes, what wasn't possible in the past suddenly is possible now, or something that we were striving to no longer seems as important as it once did. So I guess it's really important for couples to constantly be revisiting. As I said, Karen and I, we definitely do this approximately every 2 years. We'll sit down and over about a week, once again, sort of reprioritize and just sort of see, is the direction we're taking the direction that we want to take? And sometimes, I guess we've been really surprised that what was once a pipe dream, something that was on our possibly maybe one day never list, suddenly becomes possible. It becomes doable. And that's really exciting, to realize that, what, we always sort of hoped that maybe we one day could do this, but now we've reached the place where it's actually possible to do it. And so it's really important for couples to stop and to revisit and to, look at what's actually important to them, because they are constantly changing. Both people in the relationship are changing and their family is changing. Some of the things that we've done as a family when the kids were little, they weren't possible because the kids were little. Now that they're older, they're more mobile, they can be more patient, they have more skills and capacities. And so we can do things that were more complex that we couldn't in the past. So yeah, definitely really important to revisit goals from time to time.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Is it something you do like a romantic weekend away, or is it something that you perhaps just do on a Sunday morning after doing the crossword or whatever?
We've done both. So there's been times where we just had a bit of a miserable Saturday and we were sort of struggling and thinking, we're not really sort of connecting. And so after Mass on a Sunday morning, we sat down with a bit of paper and went, all right, let's just reevaluate where we're at and where we're headed and what's important to us. And, we know that we recognize within us a need to feel a bit more excited and a bit more on the same page. And like we're sort of there's something that we're looking forward to. And there've been other times where we've sort of been away on a holiday or a break, and we've just gone away specifically to just work on our relationship. Certainly, we know the evidence is clear that things like counselling, retreats, marriage enrichment programs really help couples. And one of the reasons why it helps couples is because they take time out of the busyness of their daily life to just focus on what's important to them and to work on their relationship, and it makes a real difference. One of the goals Karen and I have at the moment is we're coming up for our 20th wedding anniversary at the end of the year in December, and just thinking, how do we want to mark that occasion? How do we want to celebrate it? It's a little nebulous because of obviously COVID-19 and all those sorts of things, but we want to be really intentional about it. We want to have a clear plan about how we as a couple are going to celebrate that occasion. And so, and as we have sort of been sitting down to talk about some of the possibilities and options, it's brought us a sense of joy, a sense of excitement, a sense of, this is something that's coming that we're looking forward to, that's going to be enjoyable. And that's what goals do for us.
Yeah, absolutely. You wouldn't consider a third trip around Australia with the kids, would you?
We would absolutely consider a third trip. And West Australian borders are pretty tight at the moment. We might not be able to get back, but but certainly we would definitely consider another trip. It's been one of the most amazing experiences for us. I think holidays, and when couples and families plan holidays do some very interesting things to family relationships, and they create memories, that we look back to, and we kind of go, remember the time we went here or the time we did this. Even the bad holidays become actually positive memories. Remember the time we went to Busselton and it rained all weekend? We ended up staying together and playing board games, and it was kind of nice. We get to see one another, our families, in a different context, a new context. We don't learn much about one another when we're on a Wednesday evening in our home doing the normal things that we would typically do on a Wednesday evening, for instance. When we're on holiday, we're dealing with different people, different circumstances, different situations, and we learn a lot more about one another because we're trying to negotiate new circumstances. And holidays also sometimes create new possibilities. One of the things that psychology tells us is that sometimes our ways of being in relationship to one another are coupled to certain places. We have certain patterns for the way we talk about one another or to one another in our living room or in our kitchen or in our bedroom. But when we're in a new place, sitting by a pool or walking through the bush, there's no rules for how we should communicate. Sometimes couples discover new ways of talking about old things in those places. And so setting goals around holidays, getting out of your home, doing something new and fresh, it can be really, really helpful for couple relationships and families.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Derek, recapping some of the main points people can get out of this session on goal setting.
Look, yeah, goals are really important, really healthy for maintaining relationships. Certainly, if we've been going along for a while and things are stagnating a little bit, they give us fresh excitement. They give us something to look forward to. They create purpose and meaning, and they help to prioritize the use of our time and our resources and our finances. And when you set goals, I really encourage couples to use the SMART acronym. So you can look that up online, SMART, SMART. But what it stands for very briefly is that your goals should be specific. So something that you really specifically can sort of name and identify, measurable. So you know whether you've actually achieved it or not. Attainable. So something that is actually possible for you to do as a couple or as a family. Relevant. So relevant to your life situation, that's going to bring meaning to your life. And time limited. Set something with a deadline in mind that you're working towards. And always be working towards, maybe a couple of goals. Often when we achieve a goal, there's a little bit of a flat period of time as we sort of regroup. But if you've got another goal there, you've got something else that's exciting. So I really encourage couples to, look up the SMART acronym and sit down with a bit of paper and start making a list of all the things that they think that they'd like to do in the future.
Yeah, very good advice. I better let you go, Derek, so you can start planning for your wedding anniversary in December.
Thanks very much, David. We definitely will do that this afternoon.
Good on you.